Isn't it just a better looking Google Sheets? What are all of these column types? And why in the world would anyone pay for this? Those were my questions when I first got started using Airtable. Now that I've been using Airtable for over a year now, almost every single day, Airtable is way more than I ever thought it was. Airtable brings all of your workflows into one place to help you save time with clicks, search, and automations. So let's dive into what Airtable is and give you just the basics so you can get started with Airtable. Let's start with what Airtable is and what it isn't. Airtable is meant to help you manage your data and your workflows. It's not meant to manage your calculations like Google Sheets. So this is where the big difference between Airtable and Google Sheets is. For some context, Airtable, you would help manage applications, statuses of some things, a content calendar. You would manage your workflows through it. Now, could you do that through Google Sheets? Sure, but it's not necessarily the most effective tool for that. Now, when it comes to the differences between Google Sheets and Airtable, the context for that would be if you're going to build a financial model, you would build that through Google Sheets. You would never build that through Airtable because Airtable is not meant for just all these different calculations, whereas Google Sheets, it is built for that. Airtable is meant to manage your workflows and your operations, not your calculations. Airtable can be the back end of your business where it seamlessly connects all the different tools and your workflows and brings them together all in one place so you and your team can work efficiently and effectively. Enough of me just talking at you. Let's actually jump into Airtable itself. Now here you can see I've already created an account with Airtable and I am fully logged in. Now this is what like the home page of Airtable is once you've logged in and created your account. And as you can see, I have like the Start Station Workspace. And an Airtable Workspace is essentially like a big giant folder of all the different bases that you have created. Now a base is equivalent to what in Excel or Google Sheets would be a workbook. And then in those bases, we have tables and we'll discuss those in just a little bit. But just for now, you can see that this is a Start Station Workspace and I have another workspace which is named Templates. And then what you'll see here is that there's like guides and resources here on the left-hand side. And then also what you'll see up in this upper left corner is bases, templates, marketplace, and universe. We're not going to talk about marketplace and universe, but they can be really helpful to see how others are building their bases in Airtable. Where I do want to get started though is in templates. And one of the cool parts about Airtable is that they have really wonderful templates. So you can see all of these different templates are built from Airtable and they can be a really great starting place. Now, one side note is once you're getting started with these templates is that it can be really easy to start changing your own workflows and trying to fit those workflows into these templates. And that's really not the right approach unless your processes and your workflows really stink. If they do stink that badly, that's a different discussion. But if they're not that bad and they're actually really good, you should be adjusting these templates to fit your workflows. Tools in general should always fit you, not you fitting the tool. That's always just a great tip in general, especially when you're starting with new tools. Okay, let's actually jump into these templates. And the template that I want to show you more in depth is this content calendar because it's probably the most used template here in Airtable. So I've clicked in on this template and as you can see, there's this content calendar template and it shows you the nice thing about how Airtable formats these is it actually shows you like and gives you information on each of these templates. So you're not just like jumping in blindly. It actually shows you like who should be using it, why are they important and how like why would I even do this in Airtable? And then if you scroll all the way down, you can see here is that there's actually like a preview of what this base looks like. So I'm going to get started with it. So I'll scroll back up. And you can hit try now. So I'll hit try now and Airtable is creating that and I'll assign it to my Start Station Workspace. Okay, so as you can see, here is the template and it shows me all these different things. This can be pretty overwhelming, but I'm gonna break it down for you. So there is like a little template tutorial or like it'll show you a tour of the space. You can do that. I'm just gonna skip it for now because that's not what we're focused on. But I'll skip it. I'll close this. Now that we have the base fully open, you can see this is the entire base put together. So this is one of those boxes that we saw earlier in your workspace. So there's content calendar, and you can rename this. You can name it. You can then change the appearance of them. So like these different icons and all the different colors. And then you can even write a guide to this base, which can be really helpful, especially if you're onboarding people into your team and using this particular base. It helps you really document what this base is used for and how it works. In this case, since it's a template, they've already given you most of how it works in general, and you can tweak it as you go. So there's that. And then you'll also see these different tables in Airtable. So there's this content pipeline, there's campaigns, and there's results. Now, most of these tables, right, they look more like spreadsheets, that more like Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel look to them. And in Airtable, the views are really one of the most important, powerful parts about Airtable. So for Airtable, what Airtable calls us is a grid view. Now, if I go over to results, you actually see that this is in a gallery view, and how I know this is by this little purple, square, is it's in a gallery view. And this is really helpful, especially for like images, to see what they look like, and really just showing the most important information here. So that's what they're doing in the results, is showing here's the CPC, here's the goal we had, here's the spend. They're just looking at the very, the important data that they want to look at in this particular table. So we're gonna go back to content pipeline to show you even the more of the views and how this can be really impactful. So what I'll do to help expand views is I'll click on this, and you can see here, you can create the views here, and you can see the views that have already been created. So here's the production pipeline here. Here's the content calendar. So you can put things into a calendar view, which can be really powerful, especially for, again, content calendars. So you can see visually where things are at. And you can even color them. So if let's say that you want to color by status, which like they've done here, there's status is live, it's in progress. So you can see kind of where your production schedule is at, and if you're on track to really meet all the goals of a particular content calendar. So there's that. And then the other beautiful part is that you can create multiple different grid views, so you can see what's important to you at that time. So for this content calendar, they have the production pipeline, which shows everything here, right? But if I go to author workload, what it's doing is it's grouping by the different people that are actually creating that content. And to group it and to view it in these different ways is you just go to grouped, and you can see it's grouped by creator here. So you can pick the fields that you want it to group by. Now, one of the clever parts you might be thinking to yourself is this different data? Do I need to input this differently? No, this is all the same data that's in the production pipeline. So this can be a really powerful tool about Airtable, is that you can see the different, all this different data and view it differently, which is, you're not altering it, you're not altering the data, you're just viewing it differently, because different people need to know different information, especially if you're doing something like a content calendar, or maybe, you have one person writing the more like the written words of it, and another doing the images, the videography, those different pieces. They can view different ways. Now, as you can see, to create a new view, there's the grid, there's even a form, which kind of acts as like a Google form, there's calendar, there's gallery, there's a Kanban type thing if you're into like the more Trello version of Airtable, there's a timeline view, and there's a Gantt chart. So however your different workflows or your operations want to see things and how your team wants to view it, there's really a ton of different ways to view the data and just the progress that your team is making on campaigns, on content calendars, on event creation, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different ways to view it and organize it. One last thing that I do want to mention about views is filtering. So let's say I only want to see the ones that have the status of live. So what I'll do is actually create a new grid view here. I'll just create a new view and not name it. You can always rename views later on. And I'll go to this filter tool here. So I'll do add condition, and I want the status to be is and then live. So as you can see, it only shows me those two records. So because these two records are the only two that have a status of live. Now, let's say again, maybe I don't need all this information, kind of like this author workload view. If I go to actually hide fields, you can actually hide the views that you just don't care about. So in this case, I really don't care who creates it. I don't care about the image, and I don't care about the due date because it's already live. So you can hide those different things, and you're not changing the data. You're just viewing it differently. So that's a really powerful part about views, about filters, about hidden fields. And if you got a lot of different content pieces of it, you can even sort it, you can color it. There's all these different ways you can view data and group them to make your workflows seamlessly and really fit everyone on your team's workflows. So we've covered the basics of views and the different configurations up top. Let's actually show you the other different features of Airtable, which are automations and apps. So you can see here in this upper right hand corner would be automation. So if I'll click on that and this right hand column pops out. Now here's some more like examples of automations. What I always do is just create a custom automation. And if you're like, what the heck is an automation? An automation is essentially Airtable doing tasks for you. So let's say you want to send like an automation to a candidate after they've changed statuses, or send a calendar invite to them, or even send like a Slack message in a Slack channel once things are updated for a certain team. There's all these different ways you can automate things so you are not doing all these mundane tasks that you don't want to do. These automations can really act as like a second employee, especially if you're using them really effectively and efficiently. If you're like, I love this idea, you want to learn more about automations, I have a whole video on the basics of Airtable automations, which you can see here. So that's automations. Let's jump into apps here. And apps, you can think of them as dashboards that sit on top of your Airtable bases. So you can see here in the apps, there's like this graph that shows you the status of things, and another pivot table of your team, and then the different statuses of them. So these can be really helpful just to kind of get a quick glance of where everything is at. If you add an app, there's all these different options for them. Personally, I don't use these too often, so I'm not going to jump into them, but they can be helpful depending on what your team is doing with Airtable. One thing I will mention to you about apps is that they are really similar to a new feature Airtable has been rolling out called interfaces, and interfaces are seen here in this upper left-hand corner if you click on them. And you can think of interfaces kind of like a dashboard on top of all of them, except they're actually editing your data. In a lot of ways, this kind of makes Airtable more similar to Notion in some ways, and it can be really helpful for teams that are less tech savvy. So if you have a less tech savvy team, interfaces can make Airtable a little bit easier, especially to get started. So hopefully this video helped you get started with Airtable. If you want to learn more about Airtable, you can check out either of these videos to help you learn even more skills with Airtable, and so you can improve your workflows and your operations within your business.